Black Armory's exotic bow, the Monarque, became obtainable today, and with it, we have our first dose of damage over time on a weapon back here in Destiny 2. This bow's exotic perk is Poison Arrows. Arrows fired quickly after a full draw become poison arrows. Precision hits with poison arrows spread poison to nearby enemies. In addition to this, it has snapshot sights. In terms of stats, it has 81 accuracy, 51 stability, 59 handling, 46 reload, 70 aim assist, 78 recoil direction, and a draw time of 760. This means that from what I counted, it takes 0.68 seconds until this bow is considered fully drawn. And after reaching that peak fully drawn state, you have 0.4 seconds to release the arrow to get the poison arrow effect with damage over time present on it. This sounds like a really short period of time and a lot of exact numbers, but this weapon's sights do an excellent job of illustrating when you should be releasing to get the damage over time effect. 3 levels of lines will illuminate one by one as you draw the bow until they get to a state where they're all glowing significantly brighter, in which for that 0.4 seconds will glow bright and then go dim after you've missed your window of time if you didn't release. This bow deals 151 critical damage and 101 body shot damage, not including its potential damage over time effect, in which the damage over time deals 24 damage in 8 ticks of 3 damage. This comes to a total of 175 damage for a critical hit with the damage over time, and 125 damage for a body shot with the damage over time once again. If you were to draw the bow and not release it at the peak full draw, then it'll deal 142 damage instead of 151. So basically, to take advantage of the weapon's exotic perk, you have to fully draw the bow, then afterwards you'll have a 0.4 second period to release to get a poison arrow, which again is a total of 1.08 seconds to draw and release a poison arrow. The damage over time effect lasts 1.9 seconds and applies, like I mentioned, 24 damage over that period of time in 8 ticks of 3 damage. For the second part of the exotic perk, if you land a headshot with a poison arrow, you create an area of effect that applies damage over time to anything within the target that you hit's 5-meter radius, dealing again the 24 damage over the 1.9 seconds to every target hit by it. Every bow has a sweet spot when it's drawn where it does the most damage. Drawing the bow halfway or firing it not fully drawn will have it be a projectile with travel time and not deal the highest damage possible. Holding the bow down for too long will deal slightly lower damage than at its peak. The Monarque offers greater reward for releasing in its sweet spot or peak, the 0.4 second period after being fully drawn, than other bows by allowing you to deal the highest damage on a bow possible through its damage over time effect. Rather than a small 9 damage difference between 151 and 142, you're incentivized to properly time and draw your release with a 33 damage difference and some good utility. As I mentioned, I'm pretty certain this is the highest raw damage output of a bow in the Crucible, hitting at best 175 total damage compared to even the Wish Ender's 160 damage total with a shorter draw time. Damage over time for its first time being introduced in Destiny 2 seems to have a somewhat similar duration as Destiny 1 as found on the Thorn, but perhaps slightly shorter. At 5 recovery, it took 2.82 seconds to even begin recovering against normal damage, but against the damage over time effect, it took 5.25 seconds to even start gaining health back, and was a total recovery time of 10.4 seconds. So very clearly, damage over time still has the utility of delaying your enemy's recovery. In Destiny 2, the damage ticks seem to be far more frequent, and as a result, better detail where your target's moving after being hit with damage over time. Even with how powerful of a utility damage over time is, I think in this case it has a very steep requirement that takes perfectly timed shooting and accuracy, and because of this, I am okay with it. Even though this is a completely apples to oranges conversation in comparison, damage over time isn't as obnoxious as it once was on Thorn and D1, since Thorn had a very fast rate of fire and with damage over time on each bullet, could apply and reapply that damage very easily to a target. I think this bow has pretty great utility and some really good potential damage, but it's not going to be very easy to immediately utilize. However, I think this is very much so going to reward someone who takes the time to master it and really learn the rhythm to time the shots of it. I anticipate this being very good with the Oathkeepers, the exotic gauntlets on the Hunter. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use them together, so this will be something I revisit if it proves to be worth talking about. To my knowledge, I think the Oathkeepers allows for infinite draw time, but holds the bow at what is considered the peak of the draw, and this would be where the damage over time effect is active on the bow and where you need to release it. I'm doubtful that the damage over time requirement will be manipulated by the Oathkeepers, but I guess I'm just spitballing ideas to revisit in the future when I'm able to. In PvE against our favorite ogre, it dealt 1503 critical damage plus 960 damage over time, represented in 8 ticks of 120 damage. This brought us a total of 2,463 damage. Damage over time in PvE deals approximately 64% of the total critical damage, far greater than PvP, where it's only dealing 16% of the total critical damage. Damage over time shots will guarantee the total damage. Against Kali, 1 shot dealt 25,000 damage, while 2 shots at near max rate of fire dealt 50,000 damage, and still applied all the ticks of damage over time, being total 16 ticks for the 2 shots. The damage over time staggered enemies continuously and pretty noticeably as damage was applied to them, and hitting headshots with the poison arrows served as a more lethal Firefly style effect, of course with that 5-meter radius, staggering enemies and dealing considerable damage, enough to kill groups of small adds pretty efficiently, again within the 5-meter radius. I was actually pretty surprised at how well it staggered enemies and how well it dealt with small groups of them. And for this reason, I think that it has some good potential for great crowd control in PvE. In addition to the fact that in the right circumstance, if you needed it to, it would actually probably deal some pretty good damage against mages. Being a void bow, this means that it would be actually pretty good for taking out the primeval envoys in Gambit and actually handling that primeval stage because of that AoE effect that it has with damage over time. Anyways, that's my review and breakdown of Le Monarque. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If for some reason you decide that you'd want to hang out with me and talk Destiny sometime, then you can actually catch me on Twitch. My link's in the description below, but if you don't care about that, that's okay. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.